All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Two Planker Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan Schaefer, and today on the show we got Nick Goepper. And Nick, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, I always try to figure out how to start the show. I've listened to every
Yeah,
podcast you've done, so I'm gonna ask you something a little bit out of the box that
yeah,
NBC probably isn't asking you. Are you
yeah.
still living with Steve Stepp?
Yeah, sure am. He's actually right out there. He's just sitting on my couch. I
So,
love Steve. He's my favorite roommate I've ever had.
yeah. So how did that end up happening? Because a lot of people, when they first saw the videos, I forget when it was, maybe like during COVID, they thought it was kind of like an odd matchup, considering your guys' styles are so different and you're very different skiers. So how did that all come together?
Yeah, so we actually have a very similar sense of humor, um, and worldview, if you will. But Steve and I have crossed paths several times over the last few years, and with like video shoots or skiing or at contests. But yeah, I mean, Steve and I we both have a pretty dry sense of humor. We're both from the Midwest, and we actually happen to both be going through a breakup at the exact same time with our relationships, and so that kind of set the common ground for us to, I guess, share our struggles and live together.
A match made in heaven. So
I know.
we'll get some roommate dirt. This is what I always like to ask roommates of my friends in college. Does Steve have any weird living habits that people should know about?
Um, yeah, he's pretty he makes quite an impact in the kitchen. Not only in length of time it takes to prepare meals, but also just like anytime my girlfriend and my friends come over here, they always leave and they're like, my clothes smell like peppers. He's very routine, like same meal, same cooking every single day. He usually to cook and consume his breakfasts, which it takes probably a total of like 2.5 hours. And I've also this this has been confirmed by several roommates of his in the past who have also told the story too. So
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's how I wanted to start this out. Um, we'll get to the main question and then we could explore some different rabbit holes. So why did you decide to retire from full-time competition?
yeah, that's a good question. I would love to say that, I came to this point, this sort of like grand top of the hill, like I'm done. I've done all I wanted to do, and like get the cover shot of me like crying with the Olympic rings in the background or something. But no, that didn't happen. And what really happened is I think it's kind of natural, but I lost a bit of the love and a bit of the motivation to ski really. And I think that was due to a number of things. I think first of all was I was just a little burnt out. I've been going hard for quite a while now, and most of it has been pretty competition focused, which takes a lot out of you as far as like the training and travel and the focus and all of that stuff. Um, And then also, I just was kind of consumed by other interests and other hobbies that I really wanted to spend time on, whether that be, I've started doing a bit of investing. I've really enjoyed that. I love riding my snowmobile. I love skating, rollerblading, biking, surfing, just all kinds of stuff. And I guess just life kind of was calling in other avenues. And like after about 10 months of literally like not skiing at all, or at least not skiing passionately, like I'd spend a few days on my skis because I had to, not because I really wanted to. And I just kind of was like, the writing on the wall was I felt like I needed some closure, and my supporters needed some closure, whether it was my friends, fans, or sponsors. And so the retirement was kind of like just a punctuation on this time in my life. Again, like I love skiing. I actually still like. I feel like I have a bit of unfinished business. And my sponsors are great and they still support me. So who knows what the future holds? But for now, the door is either permanently or temporarily closed, and athletes come out of retirement all the time. It's not uncommon, so who knows?
Yeah. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, you've been paying attention to skiing for longer than I have, but it seems like the typical formula for a competition skier that's looking to retire is, okay, I'm
Hmm.
out of my prime. Let me compete for the next 5 years, get last place every time, and just milk it as long as possible. Like, so why do you feel like you didn't want to take that route that I feel like I've seen quite a bit?
Because that goes against every single bone and fiber in my body. Like
Mhm.
if I anything I do in life, I either don't do it or I do it and I bleed it dry, like 100%. So um you know as far as as far as skiing goes, like I absolutely love the sport and I love the people in it. But like I don't know, like it just would be unfair to myself. It'd be unfair to my sponsors. It'd be unfair to fans, really. I mean, to continue to basically like take up space in the sport or in competition that I'm not fully like passionate about. It's it really is a shame to watch any pro athlete when that you can tell they're not 100% like in the game or focused, right? And there's a guy that's like an alternate for the contest, or like a second string rookie or whatever that would die to get some time to play or compete, and they don't have the opportunity because um the A-lister is sort of trying to figure out like what he's doing or maybe milking it, like you said. However, on the other side of that, I will say that like if anyone is accomplished and they're taking some time to milk it or sort of like hang on for a little while, like they have absolutely earned the right to do that because of all the time and sacrifice that they've put in. However, I think there's a line that you have to draw that really is very personal. It's like, okay, like when am I being unfair to myself and the next generation? But also like how much time can I really generously give myself to enjoy the fruits of my labor?
Yeah, totally. And then you see somebody like David Wise, who like had it for a long time, and then like was had a lull for a few years, and then just went
Hmm.
gold again at like 32 years old. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah. David is incredible, and I'm not gonna lie, like I also kind of wrote him off. The last few years, I was like, Dave's been doing the same run for a long time. Like he just kind of looks tired, and it was really cool to see him come out, win again at X Games. He's definitely a different type of skier than a lot of the guys, but as far as like how he represents himself and all that stuff, but it was super freaking cool to see him dominate and just basically like prove himself. Everybody loves an underdog story. I'm not saying Dave's ever been an underdog, but like everybody loves that kind of story, right? Where like you
mm,
just prove yourself again. So big props to Dave.
yeah, yeah. So that's a just a cool example of someone you think is at the end of their career, and then they come back and pull it off again. So, I mean, I got the resume in front of me. 3 Olympics. You got
Mm.
what? One, two, three, four, five, 6 X Games medals. So you've done a lot, but I want to focus on the Olympics for a little bit because this is something
Yeah, sure.
I was talking about with Mac forehand because he went kind of similar to your story a little bit. You went to the Olympics at 18 or 19, right?
19.
Yeah. So for the Olympics, you realistically have 3 shots to do it. in your ski career, right?
What do you mean?
Like,
Like
so
is
if you go in at 19 or you go in at 18, so you have a chance at 18, then you have a chance in your early 20s, then you have a
like if you
chance.
stay on top for like 8 or 9 years,
Yeah,
three
yeah,
chances and 3 cycles. Yeah, okay.
yeah. So did
Yeah.
you feel pressure going into that third one, knowing realistically this is my last chance I'm ever going to have at the Olympics, or did you think, you know what, maybe I could pull this off in my 30s?
I never thought of, like this is my last chance.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, my body feels great. Like I haven't drank alcohol in like 6 years. I mean, I eat pretty good. I mean, my body feels like it did when I was 16. So physically, it doesn't feel limiting necessarily. But I did feel a bit, I don't know, weathered, I guess, at the Olympics in Beijing. I think just mentally. I think that's what led to my recent announcement to retire from Slopestyle and Big Air. So I just, each Olympic experience for me has been, very similar, but also very different. This last one, I'd say, was probably like a combination of the most enjoyable, but also like the most uneventful at the same time. But yeah, I mean, it's once you do three, I guess that thought does start to come into your mind, like, hey, like this isn't forever. Like this, I have a shelf life. But it's also kind of weird because when I feel like I'm skiing really well and my body feels good, it's kind of hard to think that, this is the end. So I honestly would say that those thoughts never really crossed my mind when I was
Mhm.
there.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like sorry to viewers if I'm bringing every time I talk to Olympic athletes, it's like I feel like I'm having the same conversation. But
Yeah.
it seems like there's a lot of hype and pressure put on the Olympics, even though
Yeah.
it's pretty much the exact same competitors that you see in the X Games every year. So there's like
Uh-huh.
it's all this pressure. Oh my God, it's the Olympics, but it's like this is a competition that we see pretty much every year with the same competitors. So
Yeah.
do you think there's undue pressure put on like getting on the Olympic podium, or do you think that it's worth the hype to for all the excitement and all the media around who ends up on the podium for these games that happen once every 4 years?
That's a good question. The Olympics is I actually like I'm super passionate about the topic of the Olympics in our sport in particular. I mean, obviously, like it's been great for my career and the sustainability of my career, but the Olympics has the popularity and the media power to change your life. Um, because it's recognizable to, like my grandma. I mean, it's weird because at the beginning, I was in the sport before the Olympics when the dream was X Games, and the Dew Tour Olympics weren't even a reality until I was like 18. But when the Olympics comes in, it's like, the older generation that like, thought you were kind of this rebellious action sports outcast that didn't want to do team sports in high school. Now all of a sudden, when you have those 5 rings next to your head, you're legitimate. You're seen as this sort of American hero inspiration type. When in reality, they still couldn't name a trick that you do, or me personally, I still get called a snowboarder by people in my hometown. I mean, bless their hearts, and I love them, and they've been there since the beginning. But it's just like, especially here in the States, like we create such a spectacle out of the Olympics, and it's very cool. Like the stories that are told um, surrounding the Olympics are incredibly inspiring and cool. I will say though, it is a very like, I don't know, cavernous kind of like just journey that it's really like it really, I would say, benefits the haves and doesn't benefit the have-nots.
Mhm. Yeah. I think another element that plays in the Olympics too is like, and I got my master's in sports management, so like I've thought a lot about the broader sports world, and America, we are just sports is such a huge business. It's humongous, and there's other countries, Europe is huge in soccer or whatever, but there's a lot of countries where the only sporting event that matters is the Olympics. Like
That's right.
that's where they put all their energy. So I think
Yeah.
that definitely contributes to like the spectacle. But it is funny. It's like you see podiums that are so similar to what you see at the X Games every year, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this is something we've never seen before, even though it's something we've seen
Yeah.
literally every year.
Yeah. I mean, if like the thing about competition, like, is it's not the best skier that wins. It's the
Hmm.
best competitor. So, I mean, sometimes you can be the best competitor on that day, or sometimes you can be the best competitor consistently and like always podiuming at everything. The thing about the thing about the Olympics, which took me a long time to understand, is the Olympics is not about necessarily bringing the best athletes in the world. What I mean by that is, if you look at the X Games or the Dew Tour, they invite the top 10 guys no matter what. It doesn't matter if they're all American or all Canadian or if they're all from different corners of the globe. The Olympics, because of the designated country quotas and the rules from FIS, and it's the Olympics is really about including as many countries around the world in this sporting event. So, like, if you were to invite the top 30 best in the world to the X Games, that start list would look at least a little bit different to the top 30 that will go to the Olympics. Case in point is, in 2014, there were probably 10 Americans that could have got on the podium at the Olympics. We could only send four because of the quota restrictions. So realistically, you didn't have the best in the world at Sochi. You only had a select few of them because certain countries, like maybe Norway or Canada and the States, had more qualified guys, but or girls, we just couldn't send them because we could only send those four spots. So the Olympics is really this sort of international, like really community type of thing that took me a while to figure that out. But regardless, the top five spots are going to be the same as if they were at the X Games or whatever, because the top guys are always there. So
Yeah. Do you feel like so of the three Olympics, looking at it from my perspective, it seems like 2014 had the most hype, the craziest storylines. Do you feel like any of the other ones like even came close to touching how crazy the 2014 like Sochi games were? Because I'm just thinking about,
no,
yeah, I mean, go ahead.
yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, the American sweep was a big deal. The inclusion of slopestyle ski for the first time was a big deal. I mean, we also were, like, I guess, on better terms with Russia, so that helped. But yeah, that was a really I'd say great showing of our sport. Half pipe a little different because I think the half pipe was in pretty bad condition and the conditions were pretty bad for that event. But overall, I think for free skiing, like, that was a really big show and it was really cool.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about like I listen, for example, I listened to the Dumont podcast with Alex Schlopey, and he talked about how crushed he was to not make it and how it kind of changed the trajectory of his life. And I don't know if I don't know. I haven't heard any of the athletes talk about the 2018 and the 2022 games meaning as much as that first one did. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's just my misperception, but it seemed like that one meant a lot for the athletes.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was significant again because it was the first time it was in there. And I think also at that time there was like this generational shift happening where, like, Bobby Brown, Tom Wallish, Sammy Carlson, sort of this older, more veteran generation that was approaching their, like, mid to high 20s, were sort of in their last year or two of competition. And so And then there was like the younger guys like myself, Oystein Broughton, ABM that were like right behind him. Um, and like it was this combination of like the younger guys, kind of like Schlopey, who was having a breakout year at the time, like trying to get that spot, and then also this older generation that had all the attention at the time that were trying to like, one last hurrah, like Wallace, for example. Unfortunately, he was dealing with that knee injury at the time. But yeah, I think the dynamics of like the athletes and stuff definitely played into it, and then it became a little more business as usual over the next 8 years.
Yeah, I like that. Um, so talking about that generational shift, so just listening to your backstory about going to Wendell's, like the second year they had the academy, do you think that you're kind of the first? I'm just gonna throw this at you. I don't even know if this is true because I don't really know about the backgrounds of those older guys. Do you think that you're the first generation of academy kids that succeeded in competition?
I don't know.
There were academy kids before.
There's been academy kids for decades.
Yeah.
What nobody knows or wants to admit is some of the most core street guys, like Clayton Vila, for example, was an academy kid. Banks Gilberti was an academy kid. Matt Philippi, Dan Marion, like Nick Martini, like a lot of these, especially like the East Coast kids, like the academies have been instrumental in like the coaching and development of pros in all aspects of our sport, whether it's competition or filming or whatever. The academies unfortunately have this super elitist, like rich parents, privileged kind of stereotype. Which, like some of the ones like Gold Academy in Maine, where they produce like some of the top ski racers, like I think perpetuate that stereotype. But what's his name? Dan Shuffleton, Mike Hanley, there's some of like the most like influential people in our sport have been able to stay in the sport and be influential because they're employed by those academies and they pass on their knowledge and their coaching and everything. Again, like distancing yourself from that stereotype, I think can be, good sometimes. But like, yeah, there's definitely a lot of value in those. And like I did 2.5 years at Wendell's Academy and I didn't pay a nickel. Like because they scholarship or Mike Hanley, the headmaster at the time, scholarshiped me 100% because of my potential, because of my videos, because of my story, etc. Like Indiana kid wants to make it, needs a path to get there. Wendell's Academy was my absolute biggest break I ever could have gotten. I mean, it was like divine how that even happened. I would definitely wouldn't be here today talking to you about it. So yeah, everyone like I love reading the comments, on like New Schoolers forums and stuff that if I only had, parents who could drop 100K on some ski academy, then I'd be in that same position. And I just kind of smirk because there's no point in trying to
Yeah.
refute that. But anyways, sorry, I'm just rambling.
No, it's great. It's great. I like that we're talking rather than you just doing your biography. It's something that, we're getting some opinions, which is good. Um,
Yeah,
so this is a conversation I have a lot, staying on the academy topic. This is a
yeah.
conversation I have all the time with these younger kids when they come on the podcast.
By
Jackson,
the way,
yeah, go ahead.
like maybe one of those names that I said were Academy kids might not be correct, but most of them are.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
I think the case in point for what you were saying is that pretty much all the guys in Stepped were academy kids. Like that's what people need to understand what we're talking about. Like those guys all went to academies in New England.
Well, like maybe they didn't go to them for 4 years, but
Yeah.
maybe they did some weekend training camps at them, or like did like maybe a semester, or I don't know the extent of them, like But the point is that like those academies for rich kids or whatever you think about it, like were very like have been influential, like in our sport. So
Yeah. So what I was getting at before, a lot of these younger kids, they feel discouraged because it's like, oh well, this kid grew up in Park City. He's going to an academy there. Like, how do I even have a chance to compete if I'm from the Midwest or if I'm from the East Coast?
Yeah.
And I'm not mentioning any kid from Park City in particular. That's just like the stereotype of an academy kid that these younger kids are
Yeah.
complaining about. Do you think that like it is an absolute must that you have to go to an academy and get coaching and have year-round access to snow to be able to make it in competition?
So no, I mean, I think anything's possible. But nowadays with the level of tricks, it's definitely the barrier to entry is higher. I mean, I would say that there's like the haves and the have-nots have been in our sport forever, like since the beginning. I'd say that there's like a couple of things that have really like maybe made an opportunity difference or geographical difference for some of those like Midwest kids who can't afford the academies, like you mentioned. And that would be like airbags, for instance. Like airbags have accelerated the progression on jumps for like slopestyle and big air significantly over the last 4 or 5 years after they've gotten more popular and more used. And so, like, if you're in a place, if you're 14 and you've got an airbag nearby and you can learn, all four dub 14s by the time you're 16, that's huge versus like if you don't have that and you don't have, and you can't get to that in Park City or something. And also like half pipe, for example, like there's only like 5 half pipes in the entire world. And so if you don't live near a half pipe or have access to one, the chances of you being a world-class half pipe skier are next to nothing. So, I mean, if you look, like there's still great train parks in everywhere in the US. Highland Hills, Afton Alps, Perfect North Slopes. I mean, Boston Mills, Brandywine in Ohio has a little park. Like it's like if you can jump on a trampoline and slide some rails and hit some big jumps, like a little bit when you're younger, and then if you can somehow like get on snow on jumps more and more and more by the time you're like 15, 16, 17, I mean, I think you can do it. It's just you have to be creative. Like if you can't afford it yourself, like scholarships, grants, like sponsors, I mean, there's ways to do it, but I think that what you said, this overwhelming sentiment that the bar is being raised as far as like opportunity and access is just kind of sucks. That is a reality. um it's not like we have this, there's like a million skate parks in America that any kid can go to. It's not really like that for like elite slopestyle courses.
Yeah. I think, but I don't, obviously I don't have kids or anything, but I hear it's the same way with youth sports now, where it's like there's youth sports and it's just like it's super casual, but if you want to make it at all, it is a long and expensive endeavor that's like you're traveling all over the country, you're going to academies. Everyone's talking about academies. I had a friend who went to a
Yeah.
soccer academy in high school, but
Oh, really?
it seems like all of youth sports, it's like all right, if you want to make it, you got to put a lot of money into it. And I think I don't know, maybe it's just because there's better training techniques now, and there's better like science behind high performance. Maybe I don't really know why.
or
Like,
or
good,
or is it an attitude? Is
yeah,
it like in the social media age, all we do is compare ourselves to people who are looking like they're having a great time on social media all day long? They have it and I don't. So maybe is it an attitude shift that didn't exist 10 years ago? Now more people are saying, "Oh, I can't do it. Those people can. They've got the opportunity and I don't." Whereas maybe 10 years ago, like we weren't comparing ourselves all the time like we are now. So
yeah.
who knows?
I like that. I think it really does come down to mindset. Like I think that I interviewed Luke Vota, and he's like he goes to public school. Everyone always accuses him of being academy kid because he's like this Midwest kid that can triple. And he's like, yeah, I just want it. I want it bad. And there's plenty of bums that go to academies that show up there and all they do is smoke weed and like they're not going to succeed, but they have all the opportunities to succeed. So I think that it really is mindset.
Yeah, I believe that 100%.
Yeah. Um, let's see. I'd like to talk a little bit about like the business side of it and like the actual career side of it, because there's gonna be people listening to you, those young kids that want to make it, and I always like to,
Yeah,
I like to make sure that expectations are set properly.
yeah, for
If
sure.
you are like a professional competitor, let's say you're an alternate in the X Games, or you're consistently making it to finals, but you're not like winning all the time. Like, can you make a good career that sets you up for life? You know, you could take that money and make some good investments, or is it like, all right, you're doing
Yeah,
this for a few years and then you have to get a real job afterwards? Like, is the money good even at that level?
I mean, I started making some money when I was like 15, 16. Now, I wasn't making like Nigel Houston money or
Mhm.
like basketball money, but I started making enough money to be able to invest and, set myself up not for life, but for a good stepping stone after skiing. I mean, I would say that there's pretty big difference in our sport between like the top five and everyone else. So if you're in the top five, especially in competition, um, then I'd say that you can make a living for a few years. I've been making a living for like 9 or 10 years. I bought a house here in Salt Lake City. I've got a couple of other investment properties. I've got a decent portfolio that I'm working on. Like I said, I've got more interested in that over the years. And then obviously there's other avenues too. Like content is so huge nowadays. Instagram, like TikTok, everything else. Like you grow a following on one of those platforms and you could be making just as much, if not way more, than a contest jock like myself. So I mean, I always looked at skiing when I was a kid as like I saw these guys with sponsors on their heads and the X Games on TV, like just it looks sustainable. Like I was like, okay, if I don't have to go to college and I don't have to get a job and I can ski for my job, like that's dope. I want to do that. If I looked at it as, if there was no opportunity like that in skiing, I actually don't know if I would have been like as driven to make it. Especially because yeah, I don't know that but yeah, I mean it's definitely like you can't expect it's not like the PGA like where you're on tour and you're one of the 50 guys and you're making like 100, a couple hundred K and you're in DFL at every tournament. Like it's definitely like you have to be elite to be in the money, but I've been completely blessed over the years, and I've had the ability again to set myself up a little bit, and um, so there is opportunity for sure.
Hmm. Do you feel like I'm thinking what I'm specifically thinking of is like Simon Dumont with a Target logo on his helmet. Do you think that
Hmm.
there was more money for the previous generations than there is now, or do you think that it's different? It's just
I
different
don't know.
sources.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've never seen any of the contracts specifically, but I've always heard like, oh, the glory days were like, early 2010s, like late 2000s. Guys were making like, 500K, $1 million or whatever, and I said I stopped caring about the money like probably 2 or 3 years ago. I just like I used to try and get as much as I could out of my contracts and like milk every single opportunity and like I've gotten to a point now like where I'm comfortable and I'm like I don't know I just because we're not talking about the difference of in like like we're not making that much money so like to argue for a little bit more just is more stress than it's worth, I think, for me at this point. So I just am happy to be where I'm at and I just love the support of my sponsors. So
Yeah. And did you have an agent your whole career?
so I've had an agent a little bit that's helped me out with like Olympic opportunities and more like mainstream stuff, and she's amazing. Her name's Cheryl. She lives in New York City. But as far as an endemic industry agent, I've never had one of those, and I've always represented myself. So
Yeah. So there you have it. You don't need an agent necessarily to deal with like a brand, within the industry.
yeah.
So just
And I
like
think that's
yeah.
taught, I've learned a lot that way as well.
Hmm.
Now, if you're somebody like Eileen Gu on like superstar level internationally, like agents or multiple agents are super necessary to like do her operation. But for somebody like myself who's a little more small potatoes, like I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
So
Geez, I would love to hear the background behind that machine right now. She is maybe one day. But so
and
just
she's earned every single ounce of it.
oh yeah.
I know Eileen and she has completely yeah, anyways.
Yeah. No, she's on the tear. Run up the scoreboard as
Yeah.
much as you can if you're her, do
Yeah.
everything. Uh so just before we like depart this, so what as like a professional, what's like the meat and potatoes of the earnings? Is it the sponsorship money? Is it the contest winnings? I mean, I'm sure there's like a social media element to it now that maybe like you're not super well versed in, but yeah, like where's the most money coming from those avenues?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say it breaks down between salary, competition incentives, competition earnings as well, and then also like social media incentives. So my contracts over the years have always been really incentive heavy because again, like I don't know, I like to earn what I make, and I don't want to just demand money just and then have expectation. I would just rather like, okay, the work I put in is what I receive on the back end. So yeah, like if you win X Games or something, you get a nice paycheck, and then you get a nice bonus from sponsors who reward you for that placement. And then there's also like social media incentives. You get like 10,000 likes or views or whatever, then we'll give you an extra little bit here and there. So there's different ways to like structure your contracts. I'd say that's what's cool about now is that the sky is the limit. Like 10, 15 years ago, there were like two competitions on TV. It was Dew Tour X Games, and that was kind of it as far as incentives go. And then like get like a page ad in a magazine. But now like there's so many opportunities for exposure, and like you can really set yourself up however you want to your sponsors. You can be a social media skier, you can be a contest skier, you could be like backcountry skier like Sammy Carlson. You can do anything you want, and I really think the leverage is like in the athlete's hands for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Jackson Carstetter told me he's like, dude, competition sucks. I'm just gonna like go back home and make videos and just blow up that way. It's just like
Yeah.
that's awesome. I saw that you guys had a video together. Is it cool seeing another Perfect North kid just going hard?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, there's a couple of Perfect North kids, like, and I don't know if you knew this, but Chris Laker,
Yeah, yeah.
he's a Perfect North kid. And he was in Dew Tour. He did X Games. Like Perfect North, this little place in southeastern Indiana has produced like some incredible athletes. And it's funny because like the owners of the resort are pretty old fashioned. Like they're definitely not like progressive, like as far as terrain parks and just the action sports like side of it goes, but they just build a park every year, like with good solid rails. Like they use old snowmaking pipe, like rusty, rough snowmaking pipe that was in the ground to make most of their rails. And like they're like recycle everything like a real like farmer kind of mindset. And as a result, they have massive rails for this little Midwest place. They have these giant rails. Like everything's like really meaty, and so you can just like get so much time like sliding on steel, like Jackson, like probably one of the best rail skiers in the world right now.
Yeah.
But yes, it's been cool being a part of that community.
Yeah. So I was reading your Wikipedia page before this just to see what they said. Is it true Perfect North gave you a lifetime pass after the first Olympics?
Oh, they did. They sure did.
That's funny, man. In terms of like legacy, I think because once you know 10 years being highly competitive at the top of the sport, did you think about okay, like what mark do I want to leave on like on the way that I came up? Like have you gone back to Windell's to coach at all or anything? And have you done like stuff at Perfect North? Like, have you thought about all right, this is how I'm gonna like pay it back to everyone that helped me get here?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. And I don't. It's I struggle with that one a bit because I don't know what exact I'm like I like think logically about it. Like how can I make the absolute biggest impact leaving this sport possible? Okay, is it like do I set up some nonprofit foundation? Do I do an event series? Do I just put out as much Nick Goepper content as humanly possible so people can watch it for the next 100 years? I don't know. Like what's the best way? Who knows? What do I want to do? Well, I'm just going to do that tomorrow and like that'll be my legacy. So it's kind of a trying to find a balance of both. I mean, I've thought about events. I've thought about. I love being involved with Wendell's. I love being involved with Perfect North. I honestly like really love being involved locally, like in Mount Hood or Indiana, just having like a smaller but more significant impact rather than sort of trying to paint a broader stroke. Um, but I don't know. Like, I'd say I just do what I want to do more at the end of the day, whether that's compete or whether it's pursue like other opportunities. But I love, I think there's no denying that skiing has built my life and like, I want to be a part of it. I want to be an influence in some way, positively for many years to come. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but I definitely know that it's always going to take up space in my heart.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I think what you said at the beginning when you were like you have a lot of things that you're excited about after skiing. That reminds me of like what Kobe Bryant said leaving his career. He's like I'm as excited for what I'm doing after basketball as I was for doing basketball. So,
Yeah,
do you think that so you're not going to limit yourself to like just the ski world going forward?
no,
No.
I would say that too. Like I'm excited for after skiing just as much as I am skiing. I don't know about Kobe, but for me personally, like I think part of that is just convincing myself that stopping skiing is a good idea. Like, oh yeah, like totally. Like I'm excited for what's next. Like it's gonna be great, instead of like just crying about it and being sad. But no, I can't wait for what's next. Again, like that's part of the reason why I've gotten a little bit stale with just my drive for skiing is there's this other stuff. Like I love real estate. I love riding my snowmobile. I love my girlfriend and hanging out with her. Like there's these other things that are taking up my time that I love doing. And but it's also like putting skiing in a different perspective too. Like once you step away and you realize like what you were doing before and the significance of it, it helps you appreciate it more.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think yeah, it's I mean you're 28 years old. It's like
How old are you?
I'm 24. 24.
Cool.
Starting to get to the that like that time in life where it's like you have to think about it for a second. But I am very aware that
Yeah.
I'm turning 25 soon. Like that's I'm looking at
Hmm.
that like okay, that sucks. Um it it is kind of funny that, realistically unless you do something huge after this, you'll be defined as a skier for probably the rest of your life, even though it's what you did for the first 28 years of life. So there's gonna be
Right.
a lot more life not being a skier than being a skier, but that's probably what you'll be remembered as. Uh,
Yeah.
which is kind of like that's an interesting thing to think. I think that about college athletes all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, that guy at the barbecue who's got like broad shoulders. Oh, that guy played Division 1 football.
Yeah,
And like, he's like a family man, got successful business, and he like drives race cars for fun on the weekend. Like, no, he was a college football player.
yeah. So, um, just the things I've seen you've been doing lately. So you were in a rollerblading competition. You did some commentating. I don't know if you've done any
Hmm.
coaching. I think we have a viewer question about you doing coaching in the past, but like of those three things, like do you plan on continuing to pursue those going forward?
Mm, yeah,
Like
yeah.
just
I mean, I'm not like hell bent on being like a commentator or a coach or a rollerblader, but those are things that I love. I like trained for 3 months and went to the World Championships of rollerblading this summer, which was a cool experience. And Yeah, I did some commentating at the last World Cup in Mammoth, which was incredibly fun. I always thought that I always made fun of commentating. It was like, if you're in the commentator booth, you're washed up and you're a loser. And then they gave me the opportunity to do it, and I did it, and I was like, wow, like I'm an introverted guy, but like having to be creative and talk and like be witty and like talk about tricks about what I love was so fun. And if I got the opportunity to do more of that, I would absolutely do it. And also kind of going back to what you said about giving back to the sport and being a positive influence and whatever, I feel like that's a cool way to do it, to like, have a lot of knowledge, kind of like Tom Walsh at X Games and so on and so forth. What was that third thing that I like doing? I forget what you said.
It was the rollerblading, the coaching, or I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, coaching.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I mean, man, I think like in terms of youth sports, there's a pretty drastic line between coaching and babysitting, and I feel like there's a lot more babysitting than coaching. But if I had some athletes that like really wanted it and were pumped up, like yeah, sure, I'd coach them.
yeah. Here's the thought. This is just off the top of the head. So you were blessed with a full ride to Wendell's. Would you ever think about passing on that opportunity to someone? Like you see a kid with a ton of
Absolutely.
opportunity, you would? Yeah,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I thought about that too. Like, I'm like I love like meritocracy, right? Like you earn it. Maybe that's just my Midwest upbringing, but like like Perfect North, they always want to do a rail jam. Like I do a rail jam every year around the holidays, and we always have a bunch of prizes to give out to the kids. And there's always like conflicting ideas. The first idea is everybody gets a prize, and the second, and I'm always like, the best three get a prize. Like you got whoever's going the hardest gets the prize, and I'm like always on that end of it. And so yeah, I love like somebody like Jackson or Luke Bota or I don't know. There's these just young kids like that are just coming up that who knows, maybe they don't have the opportunities that they deserve and the ability to give out a scholarship or a grant or anything like that, like for a kid who really deserves it. Like I love that idea. I was on the recipient end of grants and the scholarships and personal sponsorships and stuff, and I know the value of it because like a few $1,000 for a plane ticket might not be that beneficial for you. However, like if someone, the idea that some person or sponsor organization like thinks you have enough potential to invest in you, that is a mental like bump that you wouldn't get otherwise. And I honestly think that's more valuable than the money. Is like, okay, somebody wants to invest in me. That means I must be doing a good job and like I can do this. And it kind of gives you that boost. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely. And it's also the element of, damn, this person paid for this. I don't want to let them down. Like
Exactly. Yeah, it like adds pressure. It, whether that's good or bad is up to you, but yeah, it's cool. I love it. And really like that only happens here in the States. Like a lot of other countries in the world are a little more like community based, and there's a lot more I guess opportunities and support like on the from on like the state level or like from like the Olympic organizations or federations or whatever, like um but yeah, it's like yeah, it's like for instance, like my best friend, he was doing the World Cups. He's from Switzerland. His name's Robin Gillen. He was on the World Cup tour for like a few years, and he organized this big support dinner for himself in his hometown. And he just like you know said some words and played a video and like put a little resume on the tables of his accomplishments and like his goals. And I think he made like like thousands of dollars that night just by having a dinner and inviting the community. And like if you just ask for help sometimes, like what's the worst that could happen? It could be that acceleration hit that you've always needed. So
yeah, no, that's great. Um, All right, let's transition to some viewer questions. We
Yeah,
got a couple people that want to ask you
yeah,
some
yeah.
questions. Um, let's see. We'll just yeah. Here's a funny one from Grant Harris. What was Trump's handshake like? And I actually went
He's
back and watched the video. He totally hit you with like the grab and pull. I think he switched it up to like kind of like a bro shake midway
yeah,
through.
yeah, yeah. Like we were like leaving, and it was kind of like, oh, something like that. I guess my initial thought was he's taller than he looks, like taller than me, like six, I don't know, like 6'2", 6'3" or something. I just thought it was cool that, like, cause I like, it's kind of funny to say, but I've met a few presidents and like, and like important people. And sometimes it's like, hi, good to meet you, son. Like, see you later. And it's this really formal interaction. But I guess the interaction with Trump it felt a little more like personal because it was kind of like a bro hug or whatever, which it felt like more relaxed, I guess. So that was cool. And he completely butchered my name when he called me up there. I don't know if you saw that. Did
Oh,
you know about that?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So he called me Mark Gaper, which is hilarious because we all know what a gaper is in snow sports. Um, and like I was like on the bleachers, and he's like Mark Gaper, and I was like, okay, that sounds like it could be me. And I got super freaking nervous, right? Because I was like, okay, I can't believe the president of the United States is calling me up to this podium and recognizing me. And I also thought it was hilarious that he like butchered my name in front of all of my super accomplished peers that were around me.
It was it was it was
So
the perfect mistake because not only did he butcher your name, but he also like low key insulted you in the process a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah. And also it's like in skiing, right? Like
Yeah,
again, gaper, like that's we know what that term is. So I feel
yeah.
like the core would like think that's funny forever.
It was very funny. And when you saw Pence up there, because Pence was the governor of Indiana when you first won,
Yeah,
were you like, "Hey, nice
yeah,
to see you again, buddy"? Like,
yeah, yeah. Because we did let's see, in 2014, I think maybe like once or twice actually. Yeah, I think he was the governor for two Olympic cycles, but they invited me up to Indianapolis, and I brought some friends, maybe my parents. We went into the state house, you know, shook hands with Pence and um kind of his crew, and that was cool. And it like I don't know, people make a big deal about the politics and the ideals of these guys. And like for instance, the Trump visit, I think our Winter Olympic team was like 250 people, but like only 80 people went. And the other people didn't go in protest or whatever. But regardless of who's in the house, like I don't really care. I just think it's cool to have the opportunity to, you know, visit our nation's capital like Forrest Gump. So
yeah, yeah, and like the whole thing, you're representing America at the Olympics too. So people could have an issue with that just as a base
yeah,
principle. So I understand like where the trouble came in, but that clip is just it is all time, and it's very funny. Um,
yeah.
all right, let's see, Tom Caruso. So he says you famously had trouble finding balance in your career. Did you need to be unbalanced at first to make it work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm a huge believer. I don't know. I don't have any. I don't really have any major regrets, and I think I think when you struggle, it really puts into perspective what the people around you mean to you. Meaning like if you're going through some tough times or you're being, overly selfish or whatever, and like the people who are around you who are either like giving you tough love or supporting you or like just abandoning you so you can figure it out on your own, which is also another form of tough love. Um, you like you I just think you appreciate those people more. And I mean, you definitely like need to correct you need some correction after some unbalance. Yeah, like you said.
Mhm.
Yeah, I wish I could describe that a little more eloquently, but um I mean it's super cliche, but like the way you the way you respond to or continue to respond to problems and that stuff is more important than the problems that itself. Um, so yeah, it just makes, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah. So I think I don't know if we didn't like get into this because we didn't do the whole biography.
Yeah,
But you went to
yeah,
rehab. You went to rehab twice in your career and still continued pushing forward, and you've been very public about that and open about that.
uh-huh.
Do you think that like just wearing that in your sleeve and being like, "Yep, I got knocked down, but I'm back up. I'm gonna keep." Like, do you think that's essential to making it through?
Hmm.
Like, just
Yeah,
owning everything.
yeah, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I would be lying if I didn't say that I was embarrassed. I was shameful to have those personal like shortcomings. Um, but it's like, man, like the other thing I learned about those experiences is that you really have no idea what other people are going through or have been through before. And some people have been through like the gnarliest, most like storybook Hollywood movie type shit. And you would never know what they've overcome because they're just, some construction worker or person that works at the airport or whatever. They're just living a normal life, but they've been incredibly resilient and have like willpower and belief in themselves that you could never imagine. And they're just like these normal people. And like that was probably the most eye-opening, coolest experience was these people who have been through hell, who like they're not they don't like go around and parade about it and tell everyone or want any credit. They just, like will tell people every once in a while, but they just people are resilient and people are tough. Like, oh, that's what I'll say about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, all right, Scott Belkman. What was the inflection point in your career when it went from "I can't wait to make it" to "All right, I'm like part of the crew. I made it."
So never. And I think that's a good strategy because like I never like I was telling someone the other day like I'm sponsored by Red Bull. Red Bull's like one of the most prestigious sponsorships you can get, but I've never actually felt like I've been sponsored by Red Bull. Like I always just like kind of keep in my mind like okay, I just got sponsored or like I'm always trying to get the next thing. I know that I made it, when I was 17 and I was dropping into X Games, but I like always kept this attitude that I haven't made it yet. Like I still got more to go, which helps motivate me. It's also kind of a crutch because like you're never satisfied and you're never like happy with what you're doing because there's always like the next best thing. Um, but I'd say in reality, like when I won X Games when I was 18, that was probably the point where I was like, okay, like I'm here and like I beat all these guys. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. Would
So.
you? I could totally, absolutely relate to that feeling of, all right, I did this thing that I was aiming for forever. What's next? You know?
Yeah.
Did you take the time to celebrate in between those things? Because a lot of high level athletes say like that's huge. Like there was I was reading some article about this professional golfer. He won and then bought himself just like this ridiculous watch because he's like, I wanted this forever. I needed some sort of token to like bookmark it and be like, yep,
Yeah.
Did you ever treat yourself along the way or anything like that?
I never really did, in which I think it's healthy to do that, like you said.
Mhm.
Um, man, I think recognize like I think part of that is like celebrating the people around you and the people that are supporting you, like, taking everyone out for a night on the town or a big dinner or like whatever. Like, yeah, I've never been a big fan of like celebrating myself and bringing people to the party. Like my birthdays have always been incredibly boring my entire life. Like I just have never been one to like throw a big birthday party. But but yeah, I mean, I think responsibly celebrating your accomplishments is important. I mean, I think there's been times in my career where like, I just partied excessively or, just chased things that were not good. And um and you can sometimes justify that, like, oh yeah, like I'm this accomplished dude, like I'm doing all these great things, therefore, like I can indulge. But, at a certain point, it becomes counterproductive. So I feel like if you've got like in the back of your head, like, okay, like let's party and then let's get down to business, then that's good.
Yeah, that's a good balance. All right, last two. One of them's pretty lighthearted. Uh, Aaron Zinni, have you ever hit a street spot?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Are they?
I'm not nearly as many as, I don't know, Alex Hackle.
Yeah.
Good good friend of mine. Love Alex. But yeah, probably like, I don't know, 10 or 12.
And were those part of like a just for fun, or was that part of like
Yeah,
a
just
video?
like, no, like Instagram. I made a Nick Goepper season edit when I was 13, and there were some street spots in there around Lawrenceburg.
That's great.
Yeah,
I
that's
gotta go.
pretty. And actually, my friend who was filming you with that video, his grandparents were in town. We didn't drive. We couldn't drive because we were 13 or 14. And so his grandparents loaded us up into their like gray minivan. And I was like, all right, like for a season edit, you need street spots because that's what these other season edits that I'm seeing like have. So like let's get some clips. And so we convinced like my buddy Nathan's grandparents to like drive us around in their two-wheel drive minivan to like a couple of rails around my hometown so we could hit them. It was pretty funny.
That's awesome. I gotta go watch that after this. That's
Yeah.
Nick Gepper Street Part. It's out there. Just you gotta look
Yeah.
for it. All right, last
Yeah.
last question. So, what's your
Yeah.
advice for people trying to make it? Because you've said some beautiful things in the past. I could feed you what you said in the past, but like, what advice do you have?
Mhm. I mean, it like it's cliche for a reason, but believe in yourself. Anything's possible. Just like, especially nowadays, those isms are dismissed so easily. But yeah, just fucking believe in yourself and just work really hard. Because if you are so focused on something that you do not care what's going on outside of here, you're gonna make it. You're gonna do it. Like whether it's family or friends or haters or lack of money or whatever, like if you don't even know what's going on outside of here because you're so here, like you're going to make it if you have that attitude. That's what I would say.
Awesome. That's a great way to finish. Nick, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. We hit like an hour right on the dot, like I said we would. Um,
Hmm.
you want to plug anything where people can follow along with what you're doing after this?
Um, yeah, I think I got an idea or two. I don't think I'm, I don't think I'm done skiing. So I think there might be a little turn of events. Um, I don't know, the next year or so. So we will see. I also mentioned some names on this podcast, and I don't know. I just have so much respect for all the skiers in every discipline of this sport, and yeah, I'm just really happy to be a part of it. So thanks again for the invite, and this was really fun. This is probably the best podcast I've ever done because the other ones I was a little afraid to like really speak my mind, but this one I feel like I kind of did. So thanks.
Boom.